Hi, everyone. Welcome again to the Greatness Movement Podcast. I'm your host, Kenny Weiss. I'm a life coach, speaker, author, and founder of the Greatness Movement based here in Phoenix, where we guide you to be the greatest version of yourself. Remember, if you like the show, for those of you that generally always tune in, please share it, whether you watch on Facebook or YouTube, if you think these topics can help people. And also, one more quick reminder, we have another greatness group starting this Tuesday night. Just have a couple spots left for somebody, maybe you woke up this weekend, you partied too hard, or you went through something difficult and you're like, I've been putting this off for too long. It's time that I start facing some of these things that are keeping me from my greatness. If that's you, just send me an email to kenny@thegreatnessmovement.com. and we'll get you signed up, or go to the website, www.thegreatnessmovement.com. Just go to the group page. You can sign up right there and reserve your spot. So if you're not living the life you know you're capable of, the Greatness Movement's the most comprehensive self-improvement program out there. As the Greatness Group members have reported, people that have finished the class, they record a 78% increase, improvement in their personal life, and an 86% increase in their business and professional careers. So if you'd like a 78% improvement in your personal life and 86% improvement in your career, then a Greatness Group is for you. Again, it starts Tuesday night, 7 p.m. The cost is only $99 a month. So again, for more details, go to www.thegreatnessmovement.com. You can sign up right there on the website. All right, enough of that. Let's get into the topic. I love, you know how it is, I love to talk about all these things. I'm a psychology addict. So one of the things that gets really tricky for people is giving advice. We all want to give it. We all hate to have it, right? None of us want to be told what to do. It drives us crazy. So one thing I've realized is I see it all over Facebook, everywhere, everyone telling people what to do. And it just occurred to me, none of us have been taught how to do it. There's a right way and a wrong way. And there's a time to do it and a time not to do it. So I thought this would be a great topic to really help people, because you want to, if you're giving advice, one, most of us get frustrated if nobody takes it. So we're going to talk about that. But also, when we give it, we want it to be well received. And when we receive it, we want to know that it's coming from the right place. So unfortunately, because think of how we get advice. As kids, our parents just tell us what to do, right? And we got to do it. Well, that's kind of the model that's out there. People just bark orders and, give their 2 cents. I mean, watch any reality show and everybody's just bossing each other around. You should do this, you should do that. And most of it's bad advice. They're just sharing from maybe their own life experience, but they haven't gone out and learned about these topics. So let's get into this. Let's talk about the right way and wrong way. And the first thing I want you to realize is whenever you are listening to anybody's story about whatever problem they're sharing with you, and even when you're sharing your own story, the first thing you have to remember is everybody makes themselves out to be the hero. It's how it works. So the first thing you have to recognize is when somebody's complaining to you about their spouse or somebody at work or a family member, unfortunately, their vision of it is a bit skewed. They're always going to place themselves in the hero position. I had a best friend who taught me that years ago. I was really starting to really deepen my understanding of psychology, and he happened to be studying psychology. Plus, he was just a gifted person, and he's the one who pointed it out to me. Because I was very good about, like, I really, if you've read my book, I own my stuff. But he even pointed out, look, even when you're owning your side of the street, you still make your side of the street a little bit cleaner than the other. So I want you to keep that in mind. The first thing to recognize when somebody's telling you about their life struggles, they're telling you a version that colors them a bit better than they probably are. Okay? So don't fall hook, line, and sinker. Even if this is somebody you've known 50 years your spouse, partner, whatever it is. Keep in mind, think through it. Somebody you've known for a long time, there are always little discrepancies, little pieces they left out, or the other person had a different memory or reality about what happened. So keep that in mind. You know, we want to give advice and we just instantly think the other person is telling us the complete truth. Many people lie, but also people will just skew things subconsciously in their favor. And so make sure you kind of pull back a little bit and be what's called boundaried and recognize, okay, I understand, you know, I support this person. I love him. I care about him. I trust him. But even though I trust him, there's probably some elements to this that might be slightly different. Okay. So I want you to keep that in mind. That'll create a little bit of distance so you don't get sucked in to their story about the situation. It'll make you much more effective in the way you discern what they're sharing and how they're going about things. All right. Now, the next question, this is critical. When anyone starts telling you about something, like I do this, you know, with my kids, anybody that's close to me, when they start going down the path of they're going to explain their, you know, something troubling them in their life, I always ask them this question first. I'm like, so what do you need from me? Do you need me to just listen, or are you looking for any sort of input or feedback? Like right there, I'm allowing them to set the boundary and tell me what works. See, most people would never ask that. And so somebody tells some story and they immediately go, well, you need to do this, this, and this. They're wrong. That's terrible. Well, most of the time, men, dynamics are changing between men and women, but classically, women just want to talk. I call it puking. You know, that's what I do. I just puke my emotions out. I just want to get it out. I don't really need any input from you. I just want someone to listen. Now, classically, women, that's kind of how they have operated. They just want to get it out. They don't really need you to fix it. And men have always been fixers. Now, with the societal change in relationship dynamics and men's roles and women's roles, you're seeing that reversed. Lots of women are very shut down emotionally, while men have become much more expressive. So I don't want to classify just women or pukers or just men. Both sides do it. The lines are getting blurred and changed as society changes. But that's a wonderful question. When somebody starts talking, the first thing I want you to ask them is, so what do you need from me? Do you just need me to listen, or would you like any sort of input or feedback? Let them set the boundary. All right. Now, if they set the boundary, they just want to be heard, then the key is just empathize. Now, there's a big difference between sympathy and empathy. Sympathy is usually condescending, okay? It's really joining in victimhood. Empathy is different. Empathy is the ability to listen for the emotional content of what they're saying, not the factual details, okay? This is one of the mistakes people make when they listen or when they give advice, is they're going to listen to, I don't know, say someone's telling you about a problem in their relationship, and they say, you know, every day he comes home and he goes right upstairs. He doesn't even say hi. And it's just incredibly disrespectful. And I've told him 1,000 times he should at least come say hi to me when he walks in the door, and he'll never do it. And the friend listening will go, that's terrible. Oh my God, what a terrible person. Every man should come in and say hello to their wife. I mean, that's just wrong. See, the friend is attaching to the factual details. Ignore the factual details. Honestly, they don't matter. What matters is, how does your friend feel in that moment? So if I heard somebody, especially if they asked just to be heard, my response would be, wow, sounds like when he walks in, that really creates a lot of feelings. I don't know if it's true for you, but is it anger and sadness? Like, tell me more about that. In other words, I'm just keying in on how they feel. Because that's the thing is when people are expressing themselves, almost always, all they want to know is somebody heard their feelings, not their facts. They want to know that you care about their heart. Ask them questions about their heart. That sounds really hard for you. It sounds like you're really sad about that. Or you can turn it, if you're unsure of the feeling, you can turn it into a question and something like, I, I think I hear that you feel really frustrated and angry. Is that right? That would be a great question for a situation like that of, they haven't really said, like the example I gave, the wife is just, he just walks in and goes right upstairs, doesn't even say hello. Like she's describing it with pure facts, no emotions. All right. Some people are very good. They go, he does it every day and it's heartbreaking to me. I sit there and I stand there and I feel so alone and I feel so neglected. Well, if someone opens up like that, that's what you want to attach to. Oh my God, I can't imagine how lonely that would feel. Wow, that's really big. Thanks for sharing that. Do you see the difference between facts and emotions? Empathy versus sympathy. Sympathy would be more the attack on the facts. That's useless. Doesn't help anybody. Okay. So make sure, again, the first question you want to ask them. Well, the first piece is, remember, they're playing themselves out to be the hero. Even if they're very honest people, they're slanting things in their behavior, in their favor. So remember that. Number two, ask what they need from you. Do they just need to be heard, or do they want input? All right. Now, and the third thing is, make sure you empathize, you don't sympathize. And I just gave you the example. You want to key into feeling words. Now, let's say they're like, no, I'd like a bit of both. Or, yeah, I'd love some feedback. I'd love some advice on what I should do. All right, now we get into the tricky part, advice. Okay. The first thing to recognize is anybody who actually says they want advice, you have to remember this first. Okay. 99.8 or 99.9% of all people who ask for advice don't want it. They don't want it. And they're not going to listen to anything you say or very little. You may give them 10 great ideas. They might act on half of one. All right. So the thing you have to ask yourself, even when somebody says, no, I'd like advice, you have to ask yourself this question before you ever give any feedback is, okay, am I going to be perfectly okay if I give them these suggestions and they never do it, or even worse, they argue with me? Because that's the other thing. Think of how many times somebody's asked for advice, you give it and they argue with you. And then this happens all the time. They'll then defend the person that they're complaining about. That's the most prevalent. Somebody comes to you with a complaint about their spouse or somebody, they puke all these horrible things, they ask for advice. The second you give advice, they start defending the other person or making excuses for them, right? Isn't that what usually happens? 99% of people don't want your advice. So you have to think it through and ask yourself, am I completely okay before I give this advice, knowing that they probably won't do it, they'll probably argue with me, and they probably don't even want to hear it. The next thing you have to think about is, will I feel any resentment? If I do give them this advice and they don't follow through on it, and they stay with this person, they go back to it, they keep experiencing the same poor behavior from this person, they complain to you nonstop, are you going to feel resentment? If you think you will, don't give the advice. Keep your mouth quiet. So, how do you do that? Let's say someone's come to you, they say they want advice, but you know from history, or maybe just your mood that day, you're like, I don't think I could survive if they don't follow through on this advice. And I think I'll resent them. Okay. What I want you to do is instead of giving them advice, turn everything into a question. And so they puke this whole story. And instead of telling them what a jerk the other person is and how they should handle it this way or that way, go ask them a simple question. So, what do you think are your options? In other words, give the problem. And so they complain about their spouse walking in and never saying hello. Well, what do you think you can do about that? Almost always they're going to tell you, well, there's nothing I can do. Or they'll go, well, I'll just stop saying hello, hi to them. Right? They'll come up with a solution. And if they say something like, well, I'll stop saying hi to them. Wow. Well, there's an option. How do you think that'll work out for you? Will that get you the result you want? Do you see? You don't bite on telling them if they're right or wrong, if they're thinking about it incorrectly. You just keep giving them the problem back to them. Let them walk into it. Let them flesh it out themselves. Okay. This is, well, I'll get into that in a second. Okay. So when you don't want to give the advice or you don't think they'll accept it, the key to be a good support, and this is how you would actually give them healthy advice, is don't give them any and turn everything into a question. All right. Now, there's a second time that it's okay to give advice. All right. And that's when they pay you for it. So the bottom line is this: the only time to really give advice is if somebody's paying you for it. Like me, people pay me for my advice. But even in my situation, very, very rarely do I ever give advice. I teach. They may talk about something like this. They'll bring in, like I did with my counselor. I had to learn this. Well, because I was somebody who gave advice to everybody. And I didn't know about boundaries. I didn't know what was healthy and not healthy. Well, I asked him for information to educate me. That's not advice. I'm looking for input. I guess that is advice. That's not true. I was looking to learn, how do I do this correctly? Okay. That's a much different request. I'm demanding, or I guess demanding is probably too strong of a word, but I'm coming to him. I am paying him. Look, you're an expert in this area. I need the information that you have. Please give it to me. Now, in those situations, I consider that I'm more teaching. But when clients come to me, a problem with a spouse or career, very, 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 very rarely do I give advice. And generally, you know how I give it? If I do, I always phrase it this way. And this is something to think about. If you do decide to give advice, always make it about yourself. Instead of saying, you should do this, you shouldn't put up with that. In other words, what I want you to do is make it about yourself. And so this is how I always give advice to anyone, friends, family, clients, whatever. I always go, well, when I was in that situation, what I learned to do is this, or if it were me, this is how I would handle it. Don't know if it works for you, but that's what works for me. That's how you give advice. You don't give it. You share your strength, courage, wisdom, and hope. And you do that by sharing a life story from yourself that the person can sit there, listen to, and they can pick out certain aspects that resonate with them and decide, ooh, I like how they did that piece. I like that piece. I could never do that piece. So I'm going to drop that off. So the way to give advice is you don't give it. You share your own experience and what you might do in that situation, but you never point the finger at them. You never tell them what they should or shouldn't do. That's how most people get into trouble and get in and rejection. Just watch reality TV. People give advice, and the next thing they're fighting over, well, I told you he was a creep. I told you she was going to cheat on you and you ignored me. And now there's a loss of friendship because this person gave advice and the other one didn't use it. That's why you don't give it. It's not your place. Even if they demand it from you, I don't give it. I share my experience, strength, and hope, and what I would do in that situation. Because honestly, it's their life. I don't know what they're thinking and feeling inside, even if I've known them for years. I know that people make themselves out to be the hero, even people I've known since childhood. It's just the way we're made. And so I know not to tell them what to do. And so I always make the advice or the information about me and what I have either done in a similar situation, or if I've never been there, I would say, I've never been in a situation like that. But if I think about it, it reminds me of something like this. And so I think what I might do, these are the options I would come up with and I would try. That's how you give advice. Okay. So the bottom line is, even when you pay somebody for advice, like people pay me for it, just don't give it. It's none of your business. It's that's codependence is really what it is. Because when you feel that need to tell them what to do, now you're invested in the problem. You want to come up with a solution. Well, it's not your life. It's not your place. You're trying to play um, God in their life. And that's a codependent dynamic. So stay out of it. Just make it about you. All right. So now I'm going to give you some more ways to stay out of giving advice and really be a helpful support and allow your friend or spouse or whoever it is to come up with a solution. Now, remember I said earlier, turn everything into a question. Questions like, so what do you think your options are? Right? That's a great question. That opens up several possibilities. And as they throw out 2 or 3, then you can drill down and go, well, what would be the positive of that one? What do you think might be the negative? Do you see an advantage to that one over this one? You see, all you're ever doing is allowing them to process. The problem with advice is it allows the person to stay in a victim mindset. All you're doing is piling on, going, yeah, that's wrong. By turning everything into a question, you're taking them out of the problem and you're moving them into a solution. All right. That empowers them. That also allows them to learn the skill set, because remember, all of us as kids, we were told what to do. So most of us don't even have the skill set to figure out how to solve a problem. So you're, in a sense, playing a surrogate parent role and reparenting them. What your parents should have taught you is how to turn everything into a question so you can focus on the solution, not the victimhood of the problem. Okay. Another question would be, what would you like to see different in this situation? Well, that will immediately send them into solutions. Now, another question, this one gets a little bit more, depending on your relationship with them. You can say, what do you think you can do in this situation to make it different? Now, see, you're pushing up against them a bit. So you would need a level of closeness and trust. You wouldn't say that to a stranger, because that would feel like, for some, it would feel like an attack. But somebody that you have intimacy and connection with, you can ask a question like that. All right. Another way to do that is, what part of this situation do you think you can control? All right. That's another one of those more pressing questions that, again, is showing them, look, the problem is not the other person. The problem is you. But you're not saying that directly. You're allowing, through the question, for them to discover that, wait a minute, they're part of the problem. And that if they look at themselves, they can find things that they can do different. They can find parts of the situation that they can control and they can have an impact on. Okay. Another question would be, what sort of plan could you put in place and act on to act on what you can control? Like, that's taking it to the next step. Now, this one, we're getting much deeper. And this, again, takes tremendous intimacy and closeness. You'd ask them, so what do you think you're getting from being in this situation? Oh, nothing. I hate this. Really? Think about that. Are you sure? See, that's a question I'll ask clients because they're paying me to dig in deep. They've asked me for that level of intimacy. And almost all of them say nothing. I hate it. Well, that's not true. And so the next question becomes, let's think about that. What are the benefits? And invariably, they go quiet for several minutes, sometimes several minutes, at least 15 to 45 seconds. And they'll come up with something like, I get freedom. Really? Tell me more. Do you see? I know what they get from it, but I didn't tell them. I immediately go, tell me more. Like I'm letting them find the answer. I'm not giving them advice. I'm letting themselves confront their denial and walk down the path of what's really going on. So, how do you get freedom from that? Well, you know, by not confronting how my partner just walks in and goes upstairs, I get an extra 35, 40 minutes before I ever talk to him where I get to do what I want. Ah, that's right. You do. So, what are the benefits of getting that 35, 40 minutes? Well, I always watch my favorite show at that time, so I get to finish watching it. Ah, I see. Okay. What else does it give you? Well, lack of responsibility, because as long as I'm complaining about it, I don't have to be responsible for it changing. I don't have to take control of the situation and own that I'm not asking for my needs and wants and that I'm allowing this behavior to go on day after day without saying anything. Okay, so by not doing that, what else do you get? Well, I don't have to be intimate. I don't have to risk sharing myself and telling them that it really matters to me and sharing my feelings that I really want to hear from them. And so I don't have to risk being intimate and it gives me this space between us. And then I get to be angry at them and blame them. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. So what with that space, what do you get? Distance. So what does that distance give you? Freedom. And what do you do with that freedom? Well, I go out with my girlfriends once a week. Ah, okay. And so what does that give you? Control. That's right. So now when they come in every single day and never say hello and you don't say anything, how you're now controlling them? You're using what's called now I switch into a teaching point. You're exercising something called negative control. You're being negative, playing the victim, blaming them for how they ignore you. But yet, by not asking for your needs and wants, you totally control them. You get freedom, lack of responsibility. You don't have to risk being intimate. You get distance. You get to go out and hang out with all your friends. And then what's the final thing you get to do? When you're out with your girlfriends and you tell them how your husband doesn't say hi to you, what do you get? Attention. Bingo. Total negative control. I don't have to be responsible for anything. I get to put the blame on everybody else, and I get to co opt all my friends into saying, oh, you poor thing. They give me sympathy, not empathy. Oh my God, this is wonderful how I've manipulated this whole situation. I blame him for not saying hello, when in fact, I'm an equal participant in this problem. Do you see now why you never want to give advice? Because you'd rob them of finding the truth. Isn't it wonderful? Ask questions. Let them walk into their own manipulation. Let them see how they're playing an equal part in this dynamic. That's how you give advice. Now, there's another question you can ask of somebody, and this one's critical. They go on, and let's say they wanted feedback, they wanted input. The first question would be, do you want help for this? And they're going to respond one of two ways. Oh, no, 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 no. No, no, no. I'm just frustrated. Okay, that tells you the scenario I just painted out. They're using negative control. They're using you, honestly, this sounds terrible, but as an emotional tampon. They're just using you for attention. They don't want a solution. Okay. Or they're going to do something else. They're going to throw you an excuse. Well, I would, but I'm broke. I don't have time. I got the kids. They'll find some excuse why they can't work with someone like me, join a group, whatever it may be, read a book. Oh, I hate reading. They'll find some way to say that they can't, they'd love help, they just can't. Well, you hear any excuse at all, then this person, the worst thing you can do is listen to them. You are actually enabling the problem. You're hurting them. You are selfishly hurting them. You are also using negative control to get their attention because you want the power of them coming to you and thinking you're the trusted friend. Well, a trusted friend would not sit in front of a professional victim who doesn't want help. That's not love. That's enabling. That's codependence. You're not helping them. You're hurting them. And you're doing it selfishly. I know that's hard to hear, but that's what you're doing. It's incredibly unhealthy for both of you. So what do you do? For many of you, you listening to this, you're going, oh my God, I had no clue what I was doing wasn't helping. So the next time it happens and they start going off, you just go, I just don't think I can help you with that. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about? Well, no, this is what's really bugging me. Okay, well, I'm sure you'll figure it out. If you want to talk about anything else, that's great. Give me a call back. I got to run. I'll talk to you soon. I love you. Move on. Don't enable their victimhood. If somebody doesn't want a solution, if somebody wants a solution, they will seek it out. They will pay for the solution. Think about it. We pay for everything we want, right? That car you're driving, the food you're eating, the house you're living in. You wanted it. You found a way. You found a way. We always find a way for that $5 Starbucks. We always find a way to go on that vacation. Don't tell me you don't have money. Don't tell me there's not a solution. Don't tell me you're the person who just can't afford it and can't find a way to do it. It's not true. There's always a solution if you want it. Don't enable the people you love and rob them the opportunity of figuring it out. Now, this is what you say to somebody that's really close to you, okay? Especially if you've now discovered you've been enabling them and been as big of a problem, as big as, I can't speak tonight, as big a part of the problem. Now that you know what this looks like and how you shouldn't sit there and listen to them and you shouldn't be giving advice and you should be asking them if they want help. And if they don't, you should back off. Here's a great way of confronting this from a loving place. You wouldn't say this to somebody you've just sort of met, but this is how you would address that. You'd say, I just learned something new. And I discovered that if somebody really wants help, they'll put a plan in place to get help. I didn't know that my listening to you was actually robbing you of that opportunity. I wish I'd known that earlier because I care about you so much. I would have liked to have given you the proper support. But now that I know the best way to support you, I'm going to make amends to you by no longer listening to you in this part of your life because I see now it wasn't loving of me. And it matters to me that you feel loved. So again, if there's anything else you'd like to talk about, I'm happy to listen to you. But I'm going to love you from now on, and I'm not going to listen to this part of your life. That would be the loving way to confront that. You're taking ownership that you're part of the problem. You're not dumping it at their feet. You're owning, wow, I didn't know that I was being hurtful to you. You're also making amends and saying, here's the plan I'm going to put in place. I'm no longer going to do this because it's not loving to you and you matter to me and I want to treat you with respect and care. That's how you would address the situation. You'd take ownership of the part you played. You'd set a boundary, and then you'd express to them what you're going to do differently so they can watch your actions. And so every time they bring up the topic, you go, you know, I love you, but this just isn't an area I can support you in. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about? You just stick to it. And eventually they'll see, wow, this person's serious. They really do love me. Now, they may complain that you no longer care and say you're a jerk and all this. Well, that's because they want to stay a victim. They don't want the solution. And so they're going to project that onto you and make you the problem. Don't bite on it. Don't bite on it. When they do the work, when they drop out of their codependence and their victimhood, they're going to look back and go, man, that was the only person that loved me. They really figured it out. They'll come back to you. Okay? All right, everybody. I'm going to wrap it up there. Thanks for tuning in tonight. I really hope that helps you and you realize just don't give advice. Answer questions. Give questions. This is a show you'll probably have to watch a couple times because it's so foreign. No one's ever probably talked to you about this or shown you how this works. Please watch it several times. Really absorb it so that I know every one of you wants to be loving and supportive of those people close to you. So watch it a few times so it can sink in on how to do that. All right. If you think this show can help your friends, family members, spouse, partner, anyone you care in your life, please share it. And once again, if you want to learn skills and tools like this, tools that build actual intimacy and closeness and great relationships, once again, we have another greatness group starting Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Go to the website, www.thegreatnessmovement.com. Sign up right there. We only have a couple slots left. All right. Remember, whenever we judge, blame, or criticize somebody, the only reason we're doing that is we see something in them that's operating in us that we haven't reconciled and forgiven ourselves for. But the opposite of that is true. Whenever we see greatness in somebody else, the only reason we can see it is because we have the same greatness in ourselves. If you can't find that, if you can't see and accept that, the greatness movement is for you. Join us. Let's live in that place. All right, everyone. Have a great night. We'll see you next week.
I can do anything.